The Great Hall of the Galactic Council was silent. Ambassador Sarah Chun stood alone at the center of the massive room, surrounded by floating seats that held representatives from 47 different worlds. Each alien face looked down at her, with expressions that ranged from boredom to outright disgust. "The human request is denied," announced Counselor Vexai, his blue skin rippling with what humans had learned was amusement. The Altarian leader's voice echoed through the chamber. "Your species lacks the technological foundation to properly utilize advanced defensive systems." Sarah kept her face calm, but her hands clenched into fists behind her back. She had spent 3 months traveling to this station at the edge of known space. 3 months while human colonies burned under Kethver attacks. 3 months while her people died because they could not defend themselves properly. "Counselor Vexai," Sarah said, her voice steady despite the anger building inside her. "In the past year alone, the Kethver swarm has destroyed 17 human settlements. Over 2 million civilians are dead. We are not asking for weapons. We are asking for the defensive shield technology that you freely share with other council members." A sound like grinding metal came from the section where the Kethver representative sat. Sarah knew this was their version of laughter. The insect-like creature stood on its 6 legs, its black carapace gleaming under the chamber's lights. "The human speaks of our raids as if they were crimes," clicked Admiral Vorth through his translator. "We take what the weak cannot protect. This is the way of the galaxy. If humans cannot defend their worlds, they do not deserve to keep them." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. Sarah felt her heart sink as she saw alien after alien nodding their approval. The Zephyrians, with their crystalline bodies, chimed in harmony. The massive Groken delegate pounded his fist against his chair in support. "The Kethver speak truth," said Counselor Thrain, the ancient leader of the hegemony. His wrinkled face showed no emotion as he spoke. "For 10,000 years, this council has operated on a simple principle. The strong protect what they value. The weak lose what they cannot guard. Humanity has been spacefaring for less than 2 centuries. You have shown no great innovations, no remarkable technologies, no unique contributions to galactic civilization." Sarah's jaw tightened. She thought of the messages waiting in her ship's communication array. Desperate pleas from colony worlds begging for help. Military reports showing human ships being torn apart by Kethver weapons that could slice through their hulls like paper. "What about our medical advances?" Sarah asked. "Human doctors have found cures for 17 different diseases that plagued other species for centuries." "Medicine," scoffed Vexai. "Any civilized species develops adequate medical technology. This does not make you worthy of military protection. Our agricultural methods have increased food production on 12 worlds by over 300%. Sarah continued, her voice growing stronger. "Farming," clicked Admiral Vorth dismissively. "Even insects know how to grow food." Sarah felt something cold settle in her stomach. She looked around the chamber at faces that showed no sympathy, no understanding, no willingness to help. These beings saw humanity as nothing more than primitives playing at being civilized. "I see," Sarah said quietly. She straightened her shoulders and looked directly at Counselor Thrain. "Then humanity will have to find another way." "There is no other way," Thrain replied with certainty. "Accept your place in the galaxy, human. Some species are meant to rule, others are meant to serve. A few are meant to disappear entirely. The universe will decide which category your people belong to." Sarah nodded slowly. She walked to the small podium at the center of the chamber and placed her hands on its surface. The room fell silent as she looked up at each representative in turn. "You believe humans are weak," she said, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber. "You believe we have nothing to offer. You believe we are not worth saving." She paused, letting her words sink in. "You may be right. But I want you all to remember this moment. Remember that when humanity asked for help, he turned us away. Remember that when we begged for the tools to protect our children, you laughed at us." The chamber remained silent. Sarah continued, her voice growing colder with each word. "Remember that you taught us the only law that matters in this galaxy. The strong take what they want, and the weak lose everything they cannot protect." She lifted her chin. "Humanity will remember this lesson. We will remember it very well." Sarah turned and walked toward the exit. Her footsteps echoed in the quiet chamber. As she reached the doorway, she stopped and looked back one final time. "When the history of this galaxy is written," she said, "let it show that humanity asked for mercy first." The doors closed behind her with a soft hiss dot in the chamber. Representatives began talking among themselves. Most seemed pleased with the outcome. The HFY delegation was already planning their next raids on human space. None of them noticed the small recording device Sarah had left behind on the podium. 3 days later, Sarah's ship reached the edge of human space. She sent a single encrypted message to coordinates deep in the Kuiper belt of the Sol system. The message contained only 5 words: "Council says no. Begin Phase 1. In the darkness beyond Neptune, something huge began to move. Construction ships that had been drifting silent for months suddenly blazed to life. Massive industrial platforms hidden behind holographic screens started their engines. And deep in the asteroid belt, mining operations that had been quietly working for decades received new orders. The galaxy had made its choice. Now humanity would make theirs. The HFY would learn soon enough that some lessons, once taught, could never be unlearned. 25 years had passed since Ambassador Sarah Chun walked out of the Galactic Council chambers. The galaxy had largely forgotten about humanity during those years. Most alien species assumed the humans had either been wiped out completely, or had retreated so far into their own space that they no longer mattered. The HFY swarm had grown bolder with each passing year. Their raids on human colonies had become routine sport. They would descend on peaceful settlements, take whatever they wanted, and leave the survivors to rebuild or die. The few human distress calls that reached other species were ignored. After all, the Galactic Council had made its position clear decades ago. Captain Zektar of the HFY 3rd Fleet stood on the bridge of his command ship, watching his forces prepare for what they called harvest runs into human space. His mandibles clicked with satisfaction as he reviewed the latest intelligence reports. "The humans have abandoned another 6 systems this month," reported his intelligence officer. "Their remaining colonies are clustering closer to their home system. They are running out of places to hide." "Excellent," Zektar clicked. "Soon we will have enough slaves and resources to begin the great expansion. The human territories will make perfect breeding grounds for our young." On the bridge's main screen, Zektar could see dozens of HFY ships moving into formation. Each vessel was the size of a human city, bristling with weapons that could crack planets. The humans had nothing that could stand against them. "Sir," called his communications officer, "Admiral Vorth wishes to speak with you." The screen flickered, showing the ancient HFY admiral who had been present at the council meeting 25 years ago. His carapace was now marked with the scars of countless battles. "Zektar," Admiral Vorth's voice buzzed through the translator, "I have received approval for the final harvest. We will end the human problem once and for all." Zektar's excitement made his wings vibrate rapidly. "When do we begin, Admiral?" "In 3 months we will gather every available ship. 1,000 vessels, the largest fleet in HFY history. We will sweep through human space and eliminate every last colony. Then we will move on their home system and finish what we started decades ago." The communication ended, leaving Zektar to savor the thought of such complete victory. The humans had been a minor annoyance for too long. Soon, they would be nothing but a memory far away in the outer reaches of the Sol system, Dr. Elena Vasquez watched the same intelligence reports with very different emotions. She was 73 years old now, her hair completely gray, but her eyes were still sharp and focused. She stood in a control room that would have amazed any alien species. If they had known it existed, the room was enormous, stretching nearly a kilometer in length. Holographic displays covered every surface, showing construction projects, energy readings, and tactical analyses. But what made the room truly remarkable was what those displays were monitoring. Dr. Vasquez called her assistant, a young man named Marcus Chun. He was Sarah Chun's grandson, though few people knew that connection. The final fusion cores are coming online now. Elena nodded, watching as display after display turned from red to green. Each light represented systems that were larger than most space stations, weapons that could destroy moons, engines that could move mountains, shields that could withstand the explosion of stars. Phase 1 is complete, she announced to the room. Her voice carried across speakers to engineering teams scattered across hundreds of locations. All primary systems are operational. Cheers erupted throughout the massive facility. Engineers who had worked their entire careers on this project celebrated with tears in their eyes. Some of them were the children and grandchildren of people who had died in Kethver raids. This moment was what they had been working toward for 25 years, but Elena did not celebrate. She raised her hand for silence, and the room quickly grew quiet. "Listen to me carefully," she said, her voice stern. "Phase 1 is complete, but our work is far from over. We have built something that no species in galactic history has ever attempted. But building it was the easy part. Now we wait." "Wait? For what?" asked Marcus. Elena turned to look at a massive display showing the outer solar system. In the center of the screen was an object that looked like a small planet. It was perfectly spherical, its surface gray and unremarkable. To any casual observer, it would appear to be nothing more than a large asteroid that had somehow achieved perfect roundness. "We wait for them to make their move," Elena said quietly. "We wait for the Kethver to show us that they have learned nothing from history. We wait for them to prove that they still believe humans are weak and defenseless." She walked closer to the display, placing her hand on its surface. The image zoomed in, showing details that took her breath away even after all these years. The planet was covered in what looked like natural terrain, but Elena knew better. Every mountain was a weapon emplacement. Every valley was a launch bay. Every crater was a sensor array. "They think we disappeared," Elena continued. "They think we ran away to hide in our corner of space. They have no idea that we have been working. They have no idea that we took their lesson to heart." Marcus joined her at the display. "The lesson?" Elena's eyes hardened. "That the strong take what they want, and the weak lose everything they cannot protect." She turned to face her team. "They taught us that the galaxy respects only strength. So we built strength. We built something so powerful that even they cannot imagine it." A new alert appeared on one of the displays. Elena read it quickly, then smiled for the first time in months. "What is it?" Marcus asked. "Intelligence reports from our agents in Kethver space," Elena replied. "Admiral Vorth is gathering the largest fleet in their history, 1,000 ships. They are planning something they call the final harvest." The room fell silent. Everyone understood what that meant. "Good," Elena said calmly. "We have been waiting 25 years for them to give us a reason. They are about to provide one." She turned back to the display, showing their artificial planet. "Wake up the others. It is time to begin Phase 2. Across the solar system, similar objects began to stir. Objects that had been drifting silently in the darkness for decades. Objects that the galaxy had never noticed because they looked like natural celestial bodies. The Kethver were about to learn that humanity had indeed disappeared from the galaxy. But they had not run away. They had been preparing. Admiral Kefza stood on the command deck of the Keffer flagship, watching his massive fleet approach the Sol system. 1,000 ships stretched out behind him in perfect formation. Each vessel was a monument to Keffer power bristling with weapons that had conquered dozens of worlds. "Admiral," reported his sensor officer, "we are detecting minimal defensive activity around the human home system. A few patrol ships, some orbital platforms around their planet. Nothing that poses any threat to our forces." Kefza's mandibles clicked with satisfaction. After 25 years of raids, the humans had finally given up trying to fight back. This would be easier than he had expected. "Excellent. Begin standard sweep formation. We will destroy their outer defenses first, then move on their home world. I want this to be thorough but quick. The sooner we finish here, the sooner we can claim the entire system for the swarm." The Keffer fleet spread out, each ship taking its assigned position. They had done this hundreds of times before on dozens of different worlds. The humans would fall just like all the others, but as they moved deeper into the system, something caught the attention of Lieutenant Waketal at the sensor station. "Admiral," he called out hesitantly, "I am detecting an unusual object in the outer system. It appears to be a rogue planetary body." Kefza barely looked up from his tactical display. "A rogue planet? Probably captured by their star's gravity. Ignore it. Focus on military targets. Sir, the object is large, nearly the size of their home world. And it appears to be moving." Now Kefza turned his attention to the sensor readings. The object was indeed massive, but planets did not simply move through space on their own. "Are you certain about the movement?" "Yes, Admiral. It is definitely changing position, very slowly, but it is moving." Kefza studied the readings more carefully. The object was perfectly spherical, which was unusual for a natural planetary body. Most planets were slightly flattened at the poles due to rotation. This one was geometrically perfect. "Run a deep scan," he ordered. "I want to know what we are looking at." The sensor officer's fingers danced across his controls, directing the fleet's most powerful scanners toward the mysterious object. For several minutes, the bridge was quiet except for the humming of equipment. Then Lieutenant Waketal gasped. His carapace turned a pale green color that indicated shock among his species. "Admiral," he whispered, "the object, it is not natural. The deep scans show artificial structures throughout its interior. Massive power sources. Construction that spans the entire planetary mass." Kefza felt his blood turn cold. "What are you saying?" "Admiral, that is not a planet. It is artificial. It is ... It is a ship." The bridge fell silent. Every Keffer present stared at the sensor readings in disbelief. A ship the size of a planet was impossible. No species in galactic history had ever built anything so large. "You must be mistaken," Kefza said, but his voice lacked conviction. "No one could build something that massive. The resources alone would require the output of dozens of systems." "Sir," the communications officer interrupted, "we are receiving a transmission from the object." "From the object?" Kefza's confusion was complete now. "Put it through." The main screen flickered to life, showing the face of an elderly human woman. She sat in what appeared to be a command chair, with displays and control panels visible behind her. But what shocked Kefza was the sheer scale of the room she was in. It stretched away behind her like a vast cavern, filled with equipment and personnel. "I am Dr. Elena Vasquez, commander of Terra 1, the woman said calmly. "You are trespassing in human space." Kefza found his voice after a moment of stunned silence. "I am Admiral Kefza of the Keffer swarm. You will surrender immediately, or we will destroy your ... your vessel." Elena smiled, and the expression sent chills through the Keffer admiral. "Admiral, I do not think you understand your situation. You are facing humanity's answer to 25 years of Keffer aggression. You taught us that the galaxy respects only strength. Allow me to show you what human strength looks like. The transmission ended, and immediately the Kethver sensors began screaming warnings. The artificial planet was powering up. Energy readings spiked to levels that the instruments could barely measure. "Admiral!" shouted the sensor officer. "The object's power output is increasing exponentially. It is generating more energy than our entire fleet combined." Kefza watched in growing horror as the smooth surface of the planet ship began to change. What had appeared to be mountains and valleys were shifting, revealing themselves to be massive weapon emplacements. Gun ports, the size of cities, opened across the sphere's surface. Launch bays larger than Kethver capital ships yawned open like hungry mouths. "All ships, evasive maneuvers." Kefza ordered, but he knew it was too late. Terra 1 opened fire. The space around the Kethver fleet lit up with weapons fire unlike anything they had ever seen. Beams of energy large enough to cut through moons lanced out from the planet ship. Each shot contained more destructive power than the main guns of 10 Kethver dreadnoughts. The first wave of fire destroyed 50 ships instantly. The Kethva vessels simply ceased to exist, vaporized by energies that turned their armor into superheated plasma. "Return fire!" Kefza screamed. "All ships, target that thing and destroy it." The surviving Kethver ships turned their weapons on Terra 1, pouring everything they had into the artificial planet. Missiles, energy beams, and plasma charges struck the sphere's surface by the thousands. None of them even scratched the surface. "Admiral," reported the weapons officer, his voice shaking. "Our weapons are having no effect. Their shields are absorbing everything we can throw at them." Kefza stared at the tactical display as more of his ships disappeared under Terra 1's relentless barrage. In less than 10 minutes, he had lost nearly half his fleet to a single enemy vessel. But it was not just a vessel, he realized. It was an entire world converted into a weapon of war. The humans had taken a planet and turned it into the ultimate warship. "How is this possible?" he whispered to himself. "How could the humans build such a thing without anyone knowing?" As if in answer to his question, his sensors detected movement throughout the solar system. Other objects that he had dismissed as asteroids and small moons were now revealing themselves to be artificial as well. More planet ships, smaller than Terra 1, but still massive beyond comprehension. The humans had not just built one impossible warship. They had built an entire fleet of them. "Admiral," his communications officer called out desperately. "We are receiving transmissions from across the galaxy. Every major power is reporting similar objects appearing in their space. The humans, they are everywhere." Kefza felt his legs give out as the full scope of humanity's deception became clear. While the galaxy had ignored them, while the Kethver had raided their colonies, the humans had been working. They had been building an armada of planet-sized warships and positioning them throughout known space. For 25 years, the galaxy had been surrounded by human weapons, and no one had noticed. "All ships," Kefza whispered into his communicator. "Retreat, full retreat." But as his surviving vessels tried to flee, Terra 1 began to move. The massive sphere accelerated with impossible grace, pursuing the fleeing Kethver fleet with the patient inevitability of a natural disaster. The humans had finally shown their strength, and the galaxy would never be the same. Admiral Kefza's remaining ships fled through space faster than they had ever traveled before. Behind them, Terra 1 followed like a nightmare made real. The massive planet ship moved through the void with terrifying grace, its weapons tracking the fleeing Kethver vessels with deadly precision. "Admiral," gasped his navigation officer, "Terra 1 is gaining on us. How is something that large moving so fast?" Kefza stared at his displays in disbelief. His fastest ships were being overtaken by an object the size of a world. The human planet ship was not just keeping up with them, it was catching up. "Sir," "We are receiving distress calls from the Altara system," reported his communications officer. "The Fourth Fleet is under attack by another planet ship. They say it appeared out of nowhere." More reports flooded in from across Kethver space. Human planet ships were emerging from hiding places they had occupied for decades. Asteroids that had been ignored for years suddenly revealed themselves as massive weapons platforms. Dead moons came to life with the fury of human engineering. How many of these things did they build? Kefza whispered. His answer came when Terra 1 opened. Fire again. The planet ship's weapons reached across impossible distances, striking 3 of his escort vessels. The ships simply vanished in bursts of brilliant light. "Admiral, we cannot outrun them," his tactical officer reported. "Their acceleration curve suggests they are using some kind of gravitational manipulation drive. They are bending space itself to move faster." Kefza felt his hope dying. The humans had not just built bigger ships. They had developed completely new technologies. While the galaxy had dismissed them as primitives, they had been advancing beyond anything the established powers could imagine. "Sir, look at this," called the sensor officer. His voice was filled with terror as new readings appeared on his screen. "Terra 1 is changing. The surface is moving." On the main display, Kefza watched in horror as the smooth surface of the planet ship began to shift. What had looked like natural terrain was rearranging itself. Mountains flattened and reformed. Valleys opened to reveal massive launch bays. The entire surface of the artificial world was alive with movement. "They are launching fighters," reported the tactical officer. "Thousands of them, but these were not ordinary fighter craft. Each one was the size of a Kethver cruiser. They poured out of Terra 1 like a swarm of metallic insects, moving in perfect formation toward the fleeing Kethver ships. "Return fire," Kefza ordered desperately. "Target those fighters." His ships opened fire on the approaching human craft, but the results were devastating in ways he had not expected. When Kethver weapons struck the human fighters, they did not simply destroy them. They exploded with the force of antimatter bombs, taking nearby Kethver ships with them. "Admiral," his weapons officer reported with growing panic, "their fighters are equipped with planet-killer warheads. Each one carries enough explosive power to crack a moon." Kefza realized with growing horror that the humans were using weapons as fighter craft that were more powerful than his largest battleships. The scale of human engineering was beyond anything the galaxy had ever seen. "We need to reach the jump point," he said. "If we can get to hyperspace, maybe we can escape." But as his ships approached the system's edge, space itself seemed to twist. The jump point, which should have allowed them to escape to hyperspace, was being disrupted by some kind of field. "Admiral, Terra 1 is projecting a gravity well," his science officer reported. "They are preventing us from jumping to hyperspace. We are trapped in this system." Kefza watched his fleet being systematically destroyed by an enemy that seemed to have planned for every possible tactic. The humans had not just built bigger weapons. They had thought of everything. "Sir, we are being hailed by Terra 1, the communications officer announced. "Put it through," Kefza said, knowing he had no choice. Dr. Alana Vasquez appeared on the screen again. Behind her, Kefza could see dozens of human technicians working at control stations that stretched into the distance. The scale of the command center was overwhelming. "Admiral Kefza," Alina said calmly, "your fleet is finished. You have 2 choices. Surrender now or be destroyed completely." "You cannot do this," Kefza replied, though his voice shook. "The Galactic Council will not allow such aggression." Alina smiled coldly. "The same Galactic Council that refused to help us when your species was slaughtering our civilians? The same council that told us we were too weak to deserve protection?" She leaned forward in her chair. "Admiral, the council taught us that the galaxy respects only strength. We are simply demonstrating how well we learned that lesson." Kefza's sensors showed more human planet ships appearing throughout his territory. They had been hidden in plain sight for decades, disguised as natural objects. The humans had surrounded Kefza's space without anyone noticing. "How long?" he asked quietly. "How long have you been planning this?" "Since the day your people killed the first human civilian," Elena replied. 27 years, 4 months, and 16 days ago. We have been preparing for this moment ever since. The transmission ended, and Kefza found himself staring at a tactical display that showed the complete destruction of everything he had built. His mighty fleet was reduced to a handful of damaged ships. His territory was occupied by human forces that outgunned him by ratios he could not calculate. "Admiral," his communications officer called out, "we are receiving surrender terms." Kefza read the terms in silence. The humans wanted complete withdrawal from all occupied territory. They demanded reparations for every colony destroyed. They required the Kefver to submit to human monitoring of their military forces. But what shocked him most was the final demand. The humans wanted the Kefver to serve as an example to the galaxy. They wanted every species to see what happened when humanity was pushed too far. "Sir, what are your orders?" asked his tactical officer. Kefza looked at his remaining ships, then at the massive form of Terra 1, hanging in space like a mechanical moon. Around him, his bridge crew waited for his decision. These were warriors who had conquered dozens of worlds, who had never known defeat. "Signal all ships," he said quietly. "We surrender." As the Kefver fleet powered down their weapons, Terra 1 began broadcasting a message throughout the galaxy. The transmission reached every world, every station, every ship in known space. The message was simple. Humanity was no longer hiding. They were no longer asking for protection. They had built strength beyond anything the galaxy had ever imagined. And they were ready to use it. The age of Kefver dominance was over. The age of human power had begun, and across the galaxy, other species began to scan their own space more carefully, wondering what other dead objects might actually be human. Weapons waiting to reveal themselves. The hunt for the Kefver was just the beginning. The Great Hall of the Galactic Council was different this time. Where once 47 species had looked down at humanity with contempt, now they sat in nervous silence. Emergency sessions had been called 3 times in the past week as reports flooded in from across the galaxy. Human planet ships had revealed themselves in every major star system. Objects that had been ignored as asteroids or dead moons for decades were now showing their true nature. The galaxy was surrounded by human weapons, and no one had seen it coming. Counselor Vex High, the Altarian leader who had once laughed at human requests for help, now sat pale and shaking in his floating chair. His homeworld was currently being orbited by something the humans called Terra 7, a planet ship that dwarfed his entire space fleet. "The emergency session is now in order," announced Counselor Thrain, though his ancient voice lacked its usual authority. "We are here to discuss the human situation." The massive doors at the chamber's entrance opened, and Ambassador Sarah Chun walked in, but she was no longer the desperate diplomat who had pleaded for help 25 years ago. Now she was 78 years old, her hair white, but her eyes burned with quiet power. Behind her walked a small group of human officers, their faces calm and confident. The chamber fell completely silent as Sarah made her way to the central podium. But this time, she did not stand alone at the bottom looking up at her judges. A new chair had been installed at the same level as the council members, and Sarah took her seat with dignity. "Counselors," Sarah said, her voice carrying easily through the vast chamber, "I believe you requested this meeting." Thrain shifted uncomfortably in his seat. "Ambassador Chun, the council is concerned about recent human activities. Your species has revealed military capabilities that were not previously known." Sarah smiled. "You mean the same military capabilities we asked you to help us develop 25 years ago? The same defensive technologies you refused to share, because you said we were too primitive to use them properly." Murmurs of discomfort rippled through the chamber. Several counselors looked away, unable to meet Sarah's steady gaze. "The council wishes to discuss terms," Vexhai said quickly. "Perhaps we can reach some kind of agreement about the deployment of your ... vessels." "Terms," Sarah repeated. "How interesting. For 25 years, the only terms this council offered humanity were surrender or death. Now that we have shown our strength, suddenly you want to negotiate." She stood up and walked to the center of the chamber. Behind her, the massive wall screen activated, showing a view of space outside the council station. 3 enormous spheres hung in the darkness, their surfaces bristling with weapons that could crack planets. "Those are Terra 1, Terra 5, and Terra 12. Sarah explained calmly. "Each one is fully operational and currently targeting this station, but do not worry. We are not here to destroy you. We are here to establish new rules." The chamber erupted in panicked voices. Several counselors demanded to know how many more planet ships humanity possessed. Others called for immediate military action. But their voices died when Sarah raised her hand. "Silence," she said, and her single word carried more authority than all their shouting. "You will listen to humanity's terms." Thrain leaned forward. In his chair. "What do you want?" "First," Sarah said, "complete autonomy for all human space. No alien vessel may enter human territory without permission. No alien government may make demands of human colonies." "That is reasonable," Thrain said. Quickly. "Second, reparations. Every species that participated in raids against human colonies, or that refused to help when we requested aid, will pay compensation. The amount will be determined by human accountants based on lives lost and property destroyed." Vexhai's skin rippled with distress. "The cost would bankrupt half the galaxy." "Then you should have considered that before you let our people die," Sarah replied coldly. "Third, humanity will take a permanent seat on this council, with full veto power over any decision that affects galactic policy." The chamber exploded in protests. Representatives shouted that such authority was unprecedented, that no single species should have such power. Sarah waited for the noise to die down. "Are you finished?" she asked. "Because I have not told you the most important term yet." The chamber fell silent again. "Fourth and final. Earth will remain in its current position in the Sol system. Our homeworld will continue to orbit our star as it always has." Confused looks passed between the counselors. Several species exchanged glances, wondering why humanity would make such an obvious statement. "I do not understand," Thrain said. "Why would we demand that your homeworld be moved?" Sarah's smile was cold and terrible. "Because, Counselor Thrain, Earth is not just our homeworld, it was our prototype." The words hit the chamber like a physical blow. Representatives stared at Sarah in growing horror as the implications became clear. "You mean ... double quotes," Vexhai whispered. "I mean that every human child is born on a warship," Sarah said. "Every human city sits on a weapon platform capable of destroying solar systems. Our entire species lives aboard the most powerful vessel ever constructed." She gestured to the screen, which now showed an image of Earth from space. But now the counselors could see what they had missed for centuries. The continents were not natural landmasses. They were massive weapon emplacements. The oceans were cooling systems for engines that could move worlds. The entire planet was a machine of war disguised as a garden world. "For 50,000 years, humanity has been mobile," Sarah continued. "Earth can travel between stars. It can defend itself against any threat. And if necessary, it can leave this galaxy entirely and find a new home among distant stars." The chamber was dead silent. The most powerful beings in the galaxy sat frozen as they realized they had been living next to the ultimate weapon their entire lives. "So here are your choices," Sarah said. Accept our terms and live in peace with humanity, as equals, or reject them and discover what happens when 5 billion humans decide they no longer want to share this galaxy with species that tried to exterminate them. Thrain looked around the chamber at his fellow counselors. He saw fear in every face, panic in every expression. The old order was dead. The age when aliens could dismiss humanity as primitive and weak was over. "The Council accepts your terms," he said quietly. Sarah nodded. "Excellent. Human representatives will arrive within the week to begin implementing the new arrangements." She turned to leave, then paused. "Oh, and counselors?" "Thank you. For what?" Thrain asked. "For teaching us that the galaxy respects only strength. It was the most valuable lesson we ever learned." Sarah walked out of the chamber, leaving behind a council that would never again make the mistake of underestimating humanity. Outside the station, Terra 1 and its sister ships began their journey back to human space. They had delivered their message. The galaxy would remember. And in the depths of space, other planet ships continued their silent watch, ensuring that humanity would never again have to ask for help. The age of human strength had begun.
The great crystal dome of Xerion Prime gleamed under 3 purple suns. Inside the massive structure, beings from across the galaxy gathered for the most important meeting in 10,000 years. The Galactic Council was about to discuss something that had never happened before. A new species had just learned how to send messages faster than light. Ambassador Zeth-Kalar stood at the center of the chamber. His blue skin shimmered as he moved his 4 arms to operate the holographic display. Around him, 847 different species watched and waited. Some had tentacles instead of arms. Others floated in the air without any limbs at all. A few looked almost like giant insects, while others resembled walking trees. But they all had one thing in common. They were old. Very old. The youngest species in the Council had been traveling between stars for 50,000 years. The oldest had built their first space cities when the universe was half its current age. They had seen countless worlds rise and fall. They had watched entire solar systems burn out and die. Nothing surprised them anymore, until today, fellow beings, Zeth-Kalar said, his voice carrying through translation devices that turned his words into 800 different languages. "We have received a message from a planet called Earth. The creatures there call themselves humans." A ripple of interest moved through the chamber. New species were rare. Most planets either destroyed themselves before reaching space travel, or they were found and guided by the Council long before they could send their own messages. "Show us," called out Empress Vorthia from the Crystalline Empire. Her voice sounded like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. Zeth-Kalar activated the display. A small blue and green planet appeared in the center of the chamber, rotating slowly. It looked pretty and peaceful. White clouds swirled over blue oceans and brown continents. "This is Earth," Zeth-Kalar announced. "It orbits a yellow star in a small corner of what they call the Milky Way galaxy. The dominant species has only existed for 200,000 years."
Oh.
The chamber erupted in laughter. The sound was strange and terrible. 800 different species laughing at the same time created a noise that would have driven most beings insane, but the council members were used to it. 200,000 years? Wheezed the representative from the gas giant collective, his methane-filled breathing apparatus making weird sounds. My youngest child is older than their entire species. More laughter filled the dome. Sthethkalar waited for it to die down before continuing. It gets more amusing, he said with a grin that showed rows of sharp teeth. They only learned to fly 500 years ago. They reached their own moon just over 300 years ago. They only figured out faster than light communication. Last week, the laughter grew louder. Some species were laughing so hard they were changing colors. Others were making sounds that their translators could not even process. What do they want? Asked High Counselor Vexmind, whose brain was visible through his transparent skull. Sthethkalar pressed another control. Words appeared in the air above. The Earth hologram. This is their message. I will read it exactly as they sent it. He cleared his throat dramatically. Greetings to any intelligent life that receives this message. We are the people of Earth. We have just learned that we are not alone in the universe. We come in peace and friendship. We hope to learn from you and share our knowledge with you. We want to trade goods and ideas. We want to be part of the galactic community. Please respond if you can hear this. We are waiting with great hope and excitement. The chamber fell silent for exactly 3 seconds. Then the laughter exploded again, twice as loud as before. Some beings were rolling on the floor. Others were hitting their desks with whatever they used for hands. The sound went on for several minutes. When it finally stopped, Sthethkalar was still grinning. They want to trade with us. They think they have something we might want. These creatures who just learned to send radio signals think they can offer us knowledge? What do they look like? Asked someone from the back of the chamber. The hologram changed to show a human family standing in front of a house. They looked small and soft, with only 2 arms and 2 legs. Their skin was a light brown color, and they had hair on top of their heads. They were smiling and waving at the camera. They are mammals, Sthethkalar explained. They give birth to, live young, and feed them milk. They have no natural weapons except their teeth, which are mostly flat. They cannot fly, breathe underwater, or survive in space without machines. They live for less than 100 years. How pathetic, said Lady Zenthara from the Void Dancers. Do they at least have telepathic abilities? None at all, Sthethkalar replied. They communicate by making sounds with their mouths, or by writing symbols on flat surfaces. No telepathy, no natural weapons, short lives, and they think they can contribute to galactic civilization.
How?
The laughter started again, but Sthethkalar raised his hands for silence. There is more, he said. Their planet is divided into hundreds of separate groups that they call nations. These nations often fight wars with each other. They have weapons that could destroy their entire planet, and they point these weapons at each other every day. They're still having wars? Gasped Counselor Drimlock, whose species had given up violence 50 million years ago, with planetary destruction weapons. Yes, and they argue about everything. They cannot agree on how to govern their planet, how to distribute resources, or even whether their planet is getting warmer. They fight about invisible beings they call gods. They make laws and then break them. They promise peace and then start wars. This gets better and better, chuckled Admiral Vorthok from the Star Navy. Are we sure this is not some kind of joke? Sthethkalar shook his head. Our long-range sensors confirm everything. This species exists, and they are exactly as primitive as they appear. What do we do with them? Asked the collective voice of the Hive Queens. Sthethkalar looked around the chamber at all the ancient, wise, powerful beings who had ruled the galaxy for millions of years. I propose we do what we have always done with species that are not ready to join galactic civilization. We quarantine them. Agreed, said Empress Vorthia. This time let us make it official. I propose we classify Earth as a forbidden zone. No species shall enter their space. It's not because they are dangerous, but because they are embarrassing. The vote was quick and unanimous. 847 species all agreed. Earth would be left alone, not out of respect, but out of pity. Let them play with their little wars and their primitive technology, Zethkalar announced. When they grow up and learn to behave like civilized beings, maybe we will talk to them. Till then, let them sit in the corner of the galaxy and think about what they have done. The council meeting ended with more laughter. As the representatives returned to their ships and their worlds, they carried with them the amusing story of the baby species that thought it was ready to play with the grown-ups. None of them bothered to reply to Earth's message. After all, what could such primitive creatures possibly have to say that would interest the masters of the galaxy? On Earth, the humans waited by their radios and computers, hoping for an answer that would never come. They did not know that they had just been judged and found wanting by creatures they could not even imagine. But they would learn. Oh yes, they would learn. 50 years had passed since the galaxy went silent. 50 years since humanity sent their hopeful message into the stars and received nothing back, not even a simple hello. Dr. Sarah Chen stood in her laboratory on Luna Station, looking out at the Earth through the thick glass windows. The blue planet turned slowly below, just as beautiful as it had been when humans first dreamed of touching the stars. But something had changed in those 50 years. Something the galaxy could never have expected. Humanity had grown angry. Not the hot, burning anger that started wars and destroyed cities. This was something colder and more dangerous. It was the quiet anger of a child who had been ignored at the playground, who went home and spent years learning how to fight. Sarah turned back to her work table where the prototype lay waiting. It looked like a simple metal helmet, but she knew it was much more than that. She picked it up carefully and placed it on her head. "Computer, begin Neuralink test number 473, she said. "Beginning test," replied the computer. "All safety systems active." Sarah closed her eyes and felt the world change around her. Suddenly, she was not just herself anymore. She could feel the computer's thoughts mixing with her own. She could see data flowing through the station's networks like rivers of light. She could sense every machine in the building, from the coffee makers in the break room to the massive fusion reactors that powered the base. This was what the Terra Advancement Initiative had created. Not just faster ships or bigger weapons, but a complete joining of human minds with artificial intelligence. Other species in the galaxy used computers as tools. Humans were becoming something new, something that was both human and machine at the same time. "Test successful," Sarah said, removing the helmet. "The connection is stable for over 6 hours now." Her assistant, Marcus Webb, made notes on his tablet. "That's the longest yet. You think we're ready for the next phase?" Sarah nodded. "Contact Admiral Harrison. Tell him we can begin installing the neural links in the new ships." Marcus hesitated. "Sarah, are you sure about this? We're changing what it means to be human. Some people say we're going too far." Sarah looked at him with eyes that had seen 50 years of cosmic silence. "Marcus, the galaxy made their choice when they ignored us. They decided we weren't worth talking to. Fine. We'll show them what humans can become when they're left alone." Across the solar system, other projects were reaching completion. On Mars, the war colleges had graduated their first class of students. These were not ordinary soldiers. They were humans who had studied every battle in history, every strategy, every way that one group could defeat another. The galaxy had forgotten how to fight wars. Humans never would. In the asteroid belt, the shipyards worked day and night. The new vessels coming off the construction lines looked nothing like the peaceful exploration ships that other species built. These were predators made of metal and energy, were designed to hunt and kill and survive in the deep black between. The stars, but the most important changes, were happening to humanity. ITSELF Dr. Elena Vasquez stood before a meeting of the World Council in Geneva. She was old now, one of the few people who remembered the excitement of that first message to the stars. She also remembered the crushing disappointment when no one answered. 50 years ago, we reached out our hands in friendship, she told. The assembled leaders offered to share our knowledge and learn from others. We were ready to be the youngest students in a classroom full of wise teachers. She paused and looked around the room. Instead, we learned the most valuable lesson. In human history, we learned that we are alone, completely alone. And that has made us strong. The screen behind her showed images from across the solar system. Humans working in perfect cooperation with artificial minds. Ships that could think and fight and repair themselves. Weapons that learned from every battle and became smarter with each victory. We are no longer the same species that sent that first message, Alina continued. We have evolved, not through genetics or time, but through necessity. We have become something the galaxy has never seen before. General Harrison stood up from his seat. He was a big man with scars on his face from the resource wars of 30 years ago. The new fleet is ready, Doctor. 60 ships with full neural integration, each one capable of operating with or without human crews. Each one designed for extended deep space operations. Extended operations, asked President Chen of the Pacific Federation. How extended? Harrison smiled, but it was not a pleasant expression. Definitely. These ships can repair themselves, build new ships, and establish forward bases anywhere in the galaxy. Once we release them, they will spread like seeds on the solar wind. What will they do when they find other species? Asked Prime Minister. Okafor, of the African Union, Alina, answered this time. They will watch, they will learn. They will remember everything. Every star system, every planet, every weakness, and every defense they can find. Are we planning to invade? Asked Chancellor Richter of the European Federation. No, Elena said simply. We are planning to be ready. For 50 years, the galaxy has ignored us. Soon, they will notice us. And when they do, we want them to understand exactly what they created when they left humanity alone in the dark. The World Council voted unanimously to approve the Deep Space Observation Initiative. It sounded peaceful and scientific. It was anything but. 6 months later, the first human ships left the solar system. They moved silently through the void, their neural-linked crews thinking and planning as one. They carried no messages of peace or friendship. They carried sensors that could map entire star systems from light years away. They carried weapons that could destroy planets. And they carried the cold anger of a species that had been ignored. Behind them, more ships were already under construction. Humanity had learned to think in decades and centuries instead of years. They had learned patience from their isolation. They had learned cunning from their abandonment. Most importantly, they had learned that, in a galaxy full of ancient wise, peaceful species, the young and angry ones, had certain advantages. The galaxy had laughed at Earth 50 years ago. Soon, it would learn what happened when you left humans alone with their anger and their dreams. The ships spread out into the darkness, carrying with them the simple message that humanity had finally learned to send. We remember, we are coming. And we are no longer asking for permission. Captain Vextharn of the Kethmori Empire stood on the bridge of his warship and studied the strange readings on his screens. His red eyes narrowed as he looked at the data his sensors were collecting. Something was out there in the dark space, near the edge of the Forbidden Zone. What is that thing? Asked his weapons officer. Unknown, Captain, replied Tekmorth, his scales changing color with excitement. It appears to be some kind of research station. It's very small. The energy signature is unlike anything in our databases. Vexthorn smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. The Kethmori were proud warriors who had conquered 17 star systems in the last 1,000 years. They were not afraid of anything, especially not some mysterious object floating in empty space. Distance? He asked. 2 million kilometers in closing, Captain. Any response to our hails? None, sir. We are detecting life signs. 12 beings aboard the station? Vexthorn thought for a moment. This was strange. The forbidden zone around Earth was supposed to be empty. No species was allowed to enter. That region of space, it had been sealed off by order of the Galactic Council 50 years ago. Perhaps it is a lost colony ship, suggested Navigator Hexalaw. Some species might have drifted into the zone by accident, or perhaps Vexthorn said slowly, it belongs to the primitives from Earth. The bridge crew looked at each other with confusion. Earth, the planet with the baby species that could barely fly between their own worlds. That was impossible, Captain, called out the sensor operator. We are receiving a transmission from the station. Put it on screen. The main display flickered and showed the interior of what was clearly a space station. Standing in the center was a creature that looked exactly like the humans from the Galactic Council records. It was small and soft-looking, with only 2 arms and 2 legs. But something was different about this one. "This is Commander Rebecca Torres of Earth Research Station Prometheus," the human said. "You have entered human space. Please identify yourself and state your intentions." The Kethmori crew burst into laughter. Human space. This tiny creature was claiming territory. The audacity was almost amusing. "I am Captain Vexthorn of the Kethmori Empire," he replied. "You are trespassing in galactic void space. Surrender your vessel and prepare to be taken into custody." The human tilted her head slightly. "I'm afraid that's not possible, Captain. This station is sovereign Earth's territory. You are the one who is trespassing." Vexthorn's amusement turned to irritation. "Little creature, you do not understand the situation. Your species is quarantined. You have no legal claim to any space beyond your own star system. Now surrender, or we will take your station by force." Commander Torres looked directly into the camera. Her expression was calm and professional. "Captain Vexthorn, you have exactly 60 seconds to turn around and leave human space. It's your only warning." Kethmori Bridge erupted in shocked laughter. A human was threatening them. A creature from a species so primitive they had just learned to send radio signals was giving ultimatums to the mighty Kethmori Empire. Weapons Officer Vexthorn said, still chuckling, "Prepare to destroy that station. Let us put these primitives out of their misery." "Weapons charging, Captain. Target locked." Commander Torres watched them calmly. 59, 58, 57. "Is she counting down to her own death?" asked the navigation officer. "Appears so," Vexthorn replied. "How wonderfully dramatic." "Fire when ready." 30-29-28, Torres continued. The weapons officer's claws moved over his controls. "Plasma cannons ready, Captain. Shall I destroy them now?" 10-9-8. Fire. Nothing happened. The weapons officer looked at his console in confusion. "Captain, the weapons are not responding." 7-6-5. Emergency power 2 weapons. Vexthorn shouted, "I'm trying, sir, but all our systems are shutting down. Something is interfering with our computers." 3-2-1. "I'm sorry you chose this option, Captain." The lights went out on the Kethmori warship. Emergency power kicked in a few seconds. Later, bathing everything in red light, alarms began sounding throughout the vessel. "Report," Vexthorn roared. "Sir, something has invaded our computer systems. Our weapons are offline. Navigation is offline. Our main engines are not responding." "How is that possible?" On the screen, Commander Torres was still watching them. "Computer, deploy the swarm." Vexor looked out the window and saw something that made his blood freeze. Thousands of tiny objects were streaming out of the human station. They moved like insects, but they glowed with their own light. Within minutes, they had covered the hull of his ship. "What are those things?" he whispered. "Nanobots," Torres explained helpfully. "Self-replicating construction and repair units. They're currently disabling your weapons and taking control of your ship's systems. They're also scanning your technology and transmitting the data back to Earth." "This is impossible," Vexthorn said. "Humans are primitives. You just learned to fly." Torres smiled for the first time. It was not a pleasant expression. "Captain, that was 50 years ago. We've been busy since then." The ship shuddered as the nanobots completed their work. Suddenly, all the lights came back on. But now the computers were displaying human symbols instead of Kethmori text. "Your ship is now under our control," Torres announced. "Your crew is unharmed, but you are our prisoners. You will be held while we study your technology and learn about your species." "You cannot do this," Vexthorn shouted. "The Galactic Council will hear about this." "I hope they do," Torres replied. "Please give them a message from humanity. Tell them we said hello." The next few hours were the most humiliating in Kethmori history. 12 humans, using tools that seemed like magic, completely disabled a warship that had conquered star systems. They didn't just defeat the Kethmori, they studied them like laboratory animals. Commander Torres walked through the corridors of the captured ship, making notes on a device that translated everything instantly. She examined their weapons, their computers, their food, even their clothing. She asked endless questions about Kethmori culture, government, and military capabilities. "How many ships does your empire have?" she asked Vextharn during his interrogation. "I will tell you nothing," he replied, trying to maintain some dignity. Taurus shrugged. "That's fine. Your computers have already told us everything. 47 battle cruisers, 130 destroyers, and about 600 support vessels. Your main fleet is stationed at Kethmer Prime, which is 17 light-years from here." Vexthorn stared at her in shock. His ship's computers contained classified military information that should have been impossible to access. "Don't worry," Taurus said. "We're not planning to attack you. We're just gathering information." 3 days later, the humans released their prisoners. The Kethmori crew was allowed to return to their ship, which had been completely repaired and upgraded. Their weapons were more powerful than before. Their engines were faster. Their computers were more advanced. But everyone knew the truth. The humans had given them these improvements to show how easily they could be controlled. "Tell the galaxy what you learned here," Commander Torres said, as the Kethmori ship prepared to leave. "Tell then that humanity is no longer asking for permission to exist." As Vextharn's ship jumped away toward Kethmori space, he carried with him a message that would change everything. The primitives from Earth were not primitive anymore. They'd become something new, something dangerous, something that could take apart a Kethmori warship with 12 people and rebuild it in 3 days. The galaxy was about to learn that 50 years of silence had not made humanity weaker. It had made them terrifying. The news spread through the galaxy like fire through dry grass. Captain Vextharn's report reached Kethmer Prime first. But within days, every species in the galaxy had heard the impossible story. 12 humans had captured a Kethmori warship. 12 primitives from Earth had defeated one of the most feared military forces in known space. At first, most species refused to believe it. The Kethmori had conquered 17 star systems. Their warriors were trained from birth to fight and kill. Their ships could destroy planets. How could they be defeated by creatures who had barely learned to fly? But then the evidence started. Arriving, Admiral Corthazel of the Kethmori fleet stood in his command center, staring at the data streams flowing across his screens. His hands shook as he read the reports coming in from the border regions. "How many sightings now?" he asked. His intelligence officer. 47 confirmed contacts in the last week, Admiral, replied Commander Thexville. Human ships have been spotted at the edges of 12 different star systems. What are they doing? Nothing, sir. They just ... watch. They maintain position at exactly 10 light hours from each system's outer planets. They scan everything with sensors we cannot detect. When our ships approach, they disappear. Admiral Corthazel felt a chill run down his spine. The humans were not attacking. They were not demanding anything. They were simply observing, like scientists studying insects under glass. Have any of our ships been able to catch them? No, sir. Their technology appears to be far beyond ours. They can vanish from sensor readings in seconds and reappear somewhere else entirely. Across the galaxy, similar conversations were happening in 100 different languages. The Zephyrian Collective had detected human ships near their trade routes. The Crystal Empire found mysterious vessels monitoring their mining operations. Even the ancient Void Dancers reported strange contacts at the edges of their territory. But the humans never attacked. They never communicated. They just watched and learned. High Counselor Bemtaler of the Zephyrian Collective called an emergency session of his government. The Zephyrians were known throughout the galaxy as peaceful traders and diplomats. They had not fought a war in 10,000 years. We must attempt communication, Bemtalar announced to the assembled counselors. These humans may be more advanced than we thought, but they are still a young species. Perhaps we can reason with them. What if they are planning to attack us? Asked Counselor Densara, her tentacles writhing with worry. And we need to know their intentions, Bemtalar replied. Send our fastest diplomatic ship to intercept one of their vessels. Use all peaceful protocols. Make it clear we come in friendship. The diplomatic ship Peaceful Dawn launched 3 days later. Was painted white and silver, the universal colors of peace. Captain Velmaya was one of the most skilled negotiators In Zephyrian space, she found a human ship exactly where the report said it would be, floating silently at the edge of the Proxima Zephyr system. The human vessel was sleek and dark, almost invisible against the void of space. It looked nothing like the primitive rockets Earth had used 50 years ago. Human vessel Velmaya transmitted on all frequencies. This is Captain Velmaya of the Zephyrian Diplomatic Corps. We come in peace and wish to establish communication with your species. For several minutes, there was no response. Then a voice came over the communication system. It was calm and professional, speaking perfect Zephyrian. Captain Velmaya, this is Commander James Park of the Earth vessel Silent Observer. We acknowledge. Your peaceful intentions, Velmaya, felt relief wash over her. The humans were willing to talk. Commander Park, on behalf of the Zephyrian Collective, I extend greetings and friendship. We wish to establish formal diplomatic relations with your government. It is very kind of you, Captain, Commander Park replied. However, diplomatic relations are not my decision to make. I am here to observe and gather information. Then perhaps we could arrange a meeting with someone who does have that authority. There was a pause. Captain, I have been authorized to deliver a message to any species that attempts contact. Would you like to hear it? Yes, please. The message is as follows. Humanity remembers. We have not forgotten the laughter that greeted our first attempt at communication 50 years ago. We have not forgotten being declared an embarrassment to galactic civilization. We are no longer asking for your recognition or approval, Velmaya felt her heart sink. Commander Park, surely we can discuss this. What happened 50 years ago was a mistake. The Galactic Council acted hastily. Perhaps Park agreed. But the consequences of that mistake cannot be undone. Humanity spent 50 years in isolation wondering why the galaxy chose to ignore us. We used that time productively. What do you want from us? Nothing, Captain. You're simply observing, learning, recording the locations of your worlds, the strength of your defenses, the patterns of your trade routes. Standard intelligence gathering. The words sent ice through Velmaya's veins. Are you planning to attack us? That depends entirely on the Galactic Council's decision. What decision? The Council has 46 years, 8 months, and 12 days to formally recognize humanity's sovereign right to exist as an equal member of galactic civilization. They will also provide reparations for 50 years of isolation and grant humanity territorial rights to 12 star systems of our choosing. And if the Council refuses, Commander Park's voice remained perfectly calm. Then humanity will continue to grow stronger. We will continue to expand our knowledge of galactic civilization. We will continue to prepare for whatever future we deem appropriate. The conversation ended there. The human ship simply vanished from sensors, leaving Captain Velmaya alone with a message that would terrify the galaxy. Within hours, her report reached every major government in known space. The humans were not just back, they were making demands. They had given the galaxy a deadline, and they were clearly preparing for war if their demands were not met. The Galactic Council called an emergency session on Zarian Prime, the same crystal dome that had echoed with laughter 50 years ago, now filled with worried voices and fearful whispers. Ambassador Zethkalar, now old and gray, stood before the assembly. Fellow beings, he said, his voice shaking, we appear to have made an error in judgment regarding the humans. What do they want? Called out Empress Vorthia of the Crystal Empire. Recognition, territory, reparations, and most importantly, they want us to acknowledge that we were wrong to dismiss them. This is outrageous, declared Admiral Vorthok of the Star Navy. How dare these primitives make demands of us? We have ruled the galaxy for millions of years, have we? Asked a new voice from the back of the chamber. It was High Counselor Bemtalar of the Zephyrians, who had just arrived from his territory. Because from what I observed, these primitives now have technology that makes our greatest achievements look like children's toys. What are you suggesting? Zethkalar asked. I am suggesting that we may no longer be the rulers of this galaxy, Bemtalar replied. I am suggesting that humanity has spent 50 years becoming something we never imagined possible. And I am suggesting that we have 46 years to decide whether we want to find out what they have planned if we continue to ignore them. The chamber fell silent. For the first time in galactic history, The ancient species that had ruled space for eons were afraid of the young species they had dismissed as pariahs, afraid of the creatures they had laughed at 50 years ago, afraid of what humanity had become while the galaxy wasn't watching. Outside in the void of space, human ships continued their silent vigil, counting down the days until the galaxy would have to choose between acceptance and the unknown consequences of humanity's patience running out. The great crystal dome of Zarian Prime had never been so crowded. Every species in the galaxy had sent representatives to this emergency session of the Galactic Council. The chamber that had once echoed with laughter now hummed with nervous whispers. In fearful conversations, 40-7 years had passed since the humans delivered their ultimatum. 47 years of watching human ships appear at the edges of star systems, silent and patient. 47 years of growing fear as species across the galaxy realized they were being studied like specimens in a laboratory. Ambassador Zethkalar stood at the center of the chamber, but he was no longer the confident leader who had mocked humanity so long ago. His blue skin had faded with age, and his forearms trembled as he prepared to speak. Behind him, holographic displays showed the current state of human expansion. Red dots marked confirmed human ship sightings. There were thousands of them now, scattered across every inhabited region of the galaxy. More disturbing were the yellow dots that showed suspected human outposts. Intelligence reports suggested that humans had established hidden bases in dozens of uninhabited star systems. Fellow beings, Zethkalar began, his voice barely carrying through the vast chamber. We have gathered to make the most important decision in galactic history. The human deadline expires in exactly 7 months, 2 days, and 14 hours. A ripple of fear moved through the assembly. Everyone knew what the deadline meant. After nearly 50 years of threats and psychological pressure, humanity would finally act. What have we learned about their capabilities? Asked Empress Vorthia of the Crystal Empire. Admiral Vorthok of the Star Navy stood to answer. Older and more tired than anyone remembered. Our intelligence estimates are ... disturbing. Human ships now number in the tens of thousands. Their technology appears to be at least 1,000 years ahead of our own. Most concerning, they seem to have unlimited resources and manufacturing capacity. How was that possible? Called out High Counselor Thexmind. They have learned to convert matter directly into energy and back again, Admiral Vorthok explained. Any asteroid, any dead planet, any floating debris can become raw material for new ships and weapons. They do not need traditional mining or manufacturing. They simply reshape reality to meet their needs. The chamber erupted in shocked voices. This was technology that the galaxy's greatest scientists had only dreamed of. There is more, the Admiral continued. Our deep space monitoring stations have detected massive structures being built in the void between star systems. We believe humans are constructing what they call shadow fleets, entire armadas hidden in dark space where we cannot see them. How many ships could they have? Asked the representative from the gas giant collective. Conservative estimates suggest 1 million vessels, Admiral Vorthok replied. Optimistic estimates suggest 10 million. Realistic estimates suggest we simply cannot count them all. Silence fell over the chamber like a heavy blanket. 1 million ships. The entire Galactic Council's combined fleets numbered less than 50,000 vessels. What do they want again? Whispered someone from the back. Zethkalar activated the display showing humanity's demands. Formal recognition as an equal member of galactic civilization. Reparations for 50 years of isolation, including access to all galactic databases and technologies, territorial rights to 12 star systems of their choosing, and a formal apology from this council? An apology? Scoffed Admiral Vorthok. We're supposed to apologize to primitives? Admiral said, a new voice from the entrance to the chamber. You might want to reconsider that attitude. Everyone turned to see a figure walking down the center aisle. It was clearly human, small, bipedal, wearing a simple black uniform. There was something different about this one. The human moved with perfect confidence, as if the chamber belonged to them. I am Admiral Alina Vasquez of the Earth Defense Force, the human announced. I have come to address the Galactic Council. This is impossible, Zethkaler stammered. How did you get past our security? How did you even reach this system? Admiral Vasquez smiled. The same way we have been reaching every system in the galaxy for the past 47 years. We go where we choose, when we choose. She reached the center of the chamber and looked around at the 847 species that had once laughed at humanity. I bring greetings from Earth and the human colonial empire. Colonial empire, gasped Empress Forthia. Oh yes, Vasquez replied cheerfully. Did you think we spent 50 years sitting in one star system? We now control or influence over 300 systems across the galaxy. We have allies you have never heard of and technologies you cannot imagine. The chamber erupted in chaos. Representatives shouted questions and accusations while others simply stared in shock. Admiral Vasquez waited patiently for the noise to die down. You wanted to know what humanity learned during our isolation, she continued. We learned that the galaxy is run by ancient species who have forgotten how to grow, how to fight, how to change. You became comfortable in your superiority. You stopped innovating because you thought you had nothing left to learn. We are the elder races, shouted someone. We have ruled for millions of years. And that, Vasquez said, is exactly your problem. You are old. We are young. You are set in your ways. We adapt. You fight the same wars with the same strategies your ancestors used 1,000,000 years ago. We invent new forms of warfare every day. Zethkaler stepped forward. What do you want from us, Admiral? The same thing we asked for 50 years ago. Recognition, respect, a seat at the table of galactic civilization. Her expression hardened. The only difference is that 50 years ago, we were asking politely. Today, we are not asking at all. Are you threatening us? Admiral Vorthok demanded. I am stating facts, Vasquez replied. Humanity no longer needs your permission to exist. We no longer need your approval to expand. We no longer need your recognition to be a galactic power. We already are one. She gestured to the displays around the chamber. Every ship you see in those images represents a choice. You can accept humanity as an equal partner in galactic affairs, or you can try to oppose us. But understand this, we are no longer the species you dismissed 50 years ago. What have you become? Whispered Empress Forthia. Admiral Vasquez looked directly at her. We have become what you forced us to become. We have become the inheritors of this galaxy. The vote was called 30 minutes later. For the first time in galactic history, it was not unanimous, but it was decisive. 739 species voted to accept humanity's demands. 108 abstained. 0 voted to oppose. As Admiral Vasquez left the chamber, she paused at the entrance and looked back at the assembled representatives. Oh, and Ambassador Zethkaler, she called out. The old diplomat looked up with tired eyes. Humanity accepts your apology. We also accept your surrender. The great crystal dome fell silent as the human walked away, leaving behind a galaxy that finally understood what they had created when they left humanity, alone in the dark. The age of the elder races was over. The age of humanity had begun, and it had started not with conquest, but with the simple, terrifying realization that when you ignore a species capable of learning, you do not get rid of them. You make them stronger than yourself.